My father once told me a story so terrifying that he kept it hidden for over 30 years. A story from when he was a teenager in the mountains of Laos. A story he said was far scarier than any ghost or spirit. Because ghosts, he said, usually can't harm you. But what he encountered had already killed people he knew. This is just not a ghost story. This is a warning, passed from father to son and now to you. My father was born in the remote mountains in northern Laos, a place he calls the land of a million elephants. It was wild, beautiful, and unforgiving. My father is Hmong, part of a mountain people, an ethnic group that migrated from southern China generations ago. They lived high in the clouds, farming on steep hillsides, raising livestock, and relying on each other for survival. Life was hard, but in the mountains, you were free. No government, no roads, no outsiders, just the land, the spirit, and your own strength. In the 1960s, my father was in his early teens. Every day was the same rhythm. Work the rice fields at sunrise, break at noon for a hearty lunch, then rest in the shade before returning to work. One brutally hot afternoon, after lunch, he lay down inside the small thatch hut that his family built beside their field. He closed his eyes and drifted into a deep, heavy sleep. What happened next, he would spend his whole life questioning. In his sleep, he found himself standing beside the rice field. The air was still, but something felt strange, like the world was holding its breath. Then he heard footsteps behind him, slow, deliberate, crunching through dry grass. He turned and saw an elderly man he had never met before. The man was glowing with a faint, pale aura, not bright, just enough to make him look unreal. Yet my father felt no fear. Somehow, he sensed the old man meant him no harm. My father asked him gently, "Grandfather, who are you?" The old man didn't answer. Instead, he asked a question back to my father. "Son, do you want to be rich? Do you want success? If you do, I can help you." My father froze. This was not a normal question, not from a stranger, and certainly not in a dream. The old man continued, "I left my treasure near your field. I know where it is. If you want it, I'll show it to you." Even in his dream, my father felt his stomach tighten. In Hmong culture, spirits rarely offer something without wanting something in return. So he answered carefully, "Grandfather, I'm just a poor farmer. I don't know what to do with your treasure. I don't want it." The old man smiled, almost as if he was relieved. He raised his hand and pointed toward a thick clump of trees on the far edge of the field. He said, "If you ever change your mind, the treasure is hidden in the center of those trees." Then the man turned, began walking away, and slowly faded until he vanished completely. My father woke up instantly, covered in sweat, his heart racing, his arms numb. The dream felt too real. He swore he can still feel the old man's presence standing inside the hut with him. That evening, my grandfather noticed how shaken he was and asked what was wrong. My father told him everything. Grandpa listened silently. He didn't interrupt. He didn't question. When the story ended, he finally said, "It is good, very good that you refuse. Treasure like that always has a price." Then Grandpa shared something my father had never known. Many years ago, there's been rumors of buried treasures near our village here. People from far away has come to search for it, but the elders warned that such treasure was never meant to be taken. Months passed. The dream slowly faded, but the fear stayed with my father. One day, two brothers from their village appear on the narrow trail leading to my family's field. The older brother was bold, a risk taker, always chasing opportunities. The younger brother was quiet, timid, and followed his older brother everywhere. Both were carrying shovels and enough supplies to camp outside for several days. They stopped by the hut, shared lunch with my father's family, and asked permission to cross the fields. They wanted to search for buried treasure in the very same clump of tree that the old man has pointed to my father in his dream. My grandfather hesitated, but agreed. My father wanted to warn them about the dream, but he held back. He didn't want them to think or be offended that he was trying to claim their stake. Still, he managed to whisper to the younger brother, "There's a bad spirit in those trees. Please be careful." The younger brother nodded anxiously. After lunch, the two brothers headed straight into the thicket. Within minutes, the sound of digging echoed across the field. Then, 2 hours later, everything went silent. Moments later, shouts erupted. Joy, excitement, and disbelief. My father rushed over with other villagers. What he saw would haunt him for the rest of his life. The brothers were waist deep in a huge pit that they dug. In front of them were old wooden crates, overflowing with silver bars and silver coins, real treasure, a fortune. Next to the crates, leaning against the back of the hole, was a human skeleton, wrapped in decaying black fabric. The villagers gasped. Some backed away. Some whispered prayers. Everyone knew what this meant. Someone long ago has been killed and buried with the treasure. They were its guardian, its spiritual protector, its curse. But the brothers didn't care. They ignored the remains completely. They didn't even bother to refill the hole or rebury the body. They just grabbed the silver and walked away. The villagers were horrified. What the brothers had done was not only taboo, but it was inviting disaster. So my father's family and the villagers quietly reburied the skeleton, covered the grave, and said prayers. But even after leaving the trees, the air felt heavy, wrong, tainted. That night, many villagers refused to enter their homes before being spiritually cleansed. They all felt something terrible has been set loose. A few weeks later, tragedy struck. The younger brother was working outside his home when he suddenly collapsed from a severe headache. His nose began to bleed profusely. No herbal medicine could stop it. By sunset, he drifted into unconsciousness. By morning, he was gone. Massive blood loss. His body remained lifeless. At the same time, the older brother, not knowing what happened to his younger brother, had traveled to a nearby town with some of the silver, wanting to buy goods and to enjoy the life he always dreamed of. When he didn't return, his family started to worry. Days later, words arrived. He has been robbed and shot to death on his journey. His body was found hidden under bush along the trail. The bag of silver was gone. Two brothers, both gone at the same time, a great loss to their families, but a haunting warning to the entire village. And for the rest of the treasure, no one knows. Their families refuse to keep it. Some say they reburied it. Others say they threw it into a ravine. But the village made one decision. No one would speak of the brothers again. After the story, my father explained the grim tradition behind buried treasure in the mountains. In the old days, there were no banks. There were no place where you can store your money safely. Wealthy people buried their riches in secret places. But money alone wasn't enough to protect their wealth. So some of them committed horrific acts. They tricked someone, often someone poor or mentally challenged, to gain their trust, then kill them, burying the body with the treasure as an eternal guardian. A spiritual contract, a curse bound by blood. So when the villagers saw the skeleton, they all understood that treasure was never meant for the living. Touching it meant certain death. I asked my father after he told me this story. I said, "Since the spirit came to you, did he want you to have the treasure? If you had taken it, would you have been safe?" My father shook his head immediately. "No. Nothing from the spirit world is ever free. If you accept something, that will always come back for payment." He looked at me and said, "I was a poor farmer, but I had a good life. Wealth like that only brings trouble. Greed blinds people, and the spirits know it." This story isn't just about treasure. It's about choices, warnings, and the price of ignoring them. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you. These aren't just ghost tales. They're cultural memories, warnings, and the beliefs our family carry across oceans. If you want more true stories from Asian and Asian American communities, from huntings to family legends, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share your own story in the comments. Your story might be the next one I tell here on Asian American Ghost Stories. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, not all spirits mean you harm, but not all offers should be accepted as well. This story has been told in many countries, in many different ways. Today, I'll share a Japanese telling of it. There's an old Japanese belief: when someone waits too long for the one they love, their spirits may continue waiting, even after death. This is one of those stories. Long ago, during a time of war and hunger, there lived a man named Ichiro. He was a farmer's son, newlywed, living at the edge of a mountain village. Every morning, mist rolled in like a visitor that never learned when to leave. Ichiro's life was simple: rough hands from the fields, warm meals, quiet nights, and his wife, Hiku. They'd been married for only 1 year when the order came. Men were needed for war. Ichiro did not choose to go. He was summoned. In those days, a man cannot refuse his lord's order. Obedience meant punishment, even death, not just for him, but for those he loved. On the morning he was carried away, Kiku helped him prepare. There was no armor, no helmet, only simple clothes, straw sandals, and a spear placed into his hands like a borrowed fate. "You'll come back," Kiku said quietly. Ichiro promised her that he would. He bowed deeply, stepped onto the mountain road, and forced himself not to look back, because he feared if he did, he would never leave. War changed Ichiro. At first, he fought only to survive. He learned quickly hesitation meant death. He learned to move before thinking, to listen for dangers, to stand when others fell. Battle after battle, it hardened him. Ichiro became known not for his strength, but for his steadiness. When others panicked, he remained. When formations broke, he held the line. During one battle, chaos swallowed the field. The enemy pushed deep. Ichiro's lord was thrown from his horse. Men fell all around him. Without thinking, Ichiro ran forward. He shielded his lord with his body, fought back attackers with his spear, dragged him to safety as arrows struck the ground nearby. Ichiro survived. His lord did not forget. From that day on, Ichiro was given better weapons, better armor, then command, then promotion. He was no longer just a farmer with a spear. He became a trusted warrior. With promotion came rewards, coins, fine cloth, gifts meant for a future he believed still waited for him. Ichiro endured the war believing it all had meaning now, that the waiting would be forgiven, that the suffering would be understood. 2 years later, peace came throughout the land. Ichiro was able to return back home. He carried riches wrapped in cloth, silver coins, silk, and a finely carved wooden comb chosen specially for Kiku. He imagined her surprise, her smile, the life they would finally begin again. And he approached the mountain path. Something felt wrong. The air was too still. No birds, no insects. Even the wind seemed unwilling to pass through. The village appeared from the fog, like a place remembered, not lived in. Fields laid wild, houses leaned inward. The shrine bell hung silent, and yet one light burned. It shone from the window of his home. Relief flooded Ichiro's chest. She waited. She waited for me. The door slid open before he touched it. Kiku stood inside. She looked exactly as she had the day he left. Hair neatly tied, kimono untouched by time. "You've come back," she said softly. Her voice held no surprise, no relief, only certainty. That night, they sat together by the hearth. Ichiro spoke of the war, of battles, and how he had been promoted throughout the whole battle and the war. He placed the cloth-wrapped gift boxes before her and told her they would never worry about food again. Kiku smiled. She listened. She nodded, but she never touched the gifts. Ichiro noticed something strange. The fire gave no warmth. The tea had no steam. And though Kiku sat close, her presence felt distant, like something already fading. When he reached for her hand, it was cold, not painful, just empty of warmth. Still, Ichiro said nothing. For the first time in years, he slept peacefully. He woke alone. Morning light streamed through broken walls. The hearth had collapsed. Dust covered the floor, thick, undisturbed. The house was empty. Villagers stood outside in silence. They looked older, smaller. Their eyes avoided him. An elderly man stepped forward and bowed deeply. "Your wife died," he said. "Fever took her the winter after you left. She waited for you until the very end." Ichiro could not speak. He laughed because he thought they were joking with him. That laughter turned to terror and shock. He ran to the hillside beneath the pine trees where the villagers say they buried Kiku. There stood a single grave. At its base lay the gifts that he brought home, now damp with dew. Fresh footprints led away from the grave. Ichiro knelt down until night fell, crying, wailing, and disgusted of what had happened. Some say he died of grief. Others say he stayed. Because even now, when fog rolls through the valley, a faint light still glows in that ruined house. And sometimes, travelers swear they see a man dressed in armor sitting beside a woman who waited long enough to die. In Japanese ghost stories, spirits do not always return in anger. They do not always hunt others. Some return because love was stronger than time, stronger than war, stronger than death. These are not monsters. They are the ones who waited. This story was told to me by a Mongolian friend about his grandfather, Batsayan, who had a strange encounter while hunting in the sacred Altai Mountains in eastern Mongolia. This is the Mongols' sacred mountain where ancient graves are found and ghostly warriors still roam the valleys while other creatures roam the mountain paths. You are often told to stay on the trail and don't seek shelters in caves or unknown places because there are things there that will be upset at your presence. In the early autumn of 1966, 5 Mongolian hunters and their pack horses rode deep into the mountains, following old game trails that twisted above the tree line. The air was thin, sharp with pine and cold stone. Snow clung to the shaded slopes, even though winter has not fully come. They were hunting Siberian red deer, huge stags that moved like ghosts through the high valleys. Each man rode a sturdy stepped horse. Slung across their backs were Soviet Mosin-Nagant rifles, scarred from years of use, simple weapons, reliable, heavy. The oldest among them was Erdinan, a man whose beard has gone white before his hair. He has hunted these mountains since childhood. By dusk, they set up camp on a high basin surrounded by broken rocks, steep ridge lines, and a tranquil lake. No villages, no trails, just wind and stone. That night, the fire burned low and steady. Then they heard it. The sound came from far above them, high on the slope. It was not a howl, not a wolf, not wind. It was deep and uneven, like breathing forced through a large barrel chest. A long, rising sound that ended in a low, clicking exhaust. One younger man reached for his rifle. Erdinan raised his hand to stop him. Erdinan then said, "I have not heard that sound before." That alone was enough to send chills through them. The sound came again, closer this time, then stopped abruptly, as if whatever made it had realized it has made its point and left. No one slept well that night. On the second day, at first light, they mounted up and split apart, riding separate ridges to scout the valleys below. The horses were restless, rolling their eyes and snorting at shadows. Basahan being one of the hunters with sharper eyes, rode along a narrow game trail higher above the rest. His job was to spot and signal to the others. As the sun climbed higher, a feeling crept over him. It was fear and uneasiness all at once. He felt watched, like a prey being followed and hunted, not from behind, but from above, as if something moved parallel to him through the rocks. When his horse moved, it matches his pace. When the horse stopped, it stopped too. Just a slight delay, enough for Basahan to distinguish that there were footsteps from above. He never saw it, but when he dismounted to let his horse drink, he noticed footprints near a boulder. Bare, wide, too deep and large for a man. And what man would walk barefooted up in the mountains like this? That evening, he told no one, as he did not want to ruin their hunt. On the third day, near midday, Basahan spotted a large stag across a wide valley, massive antlers moving slowly between pine trees. He measured the distance by instinct, about 200 yards. He quietly dismounted, rested the Mosin Nagant rifle on a rock, and steadied his breathing. The rifle kicked hard when he fired, the crack echoing across the valley. The deer dropped cleanly. Relief surged through him. A perfect shot. As he stood, smiling, he saw movement near the fallen stag. Someone stepped out from behind a formation of rocks. At first, he thought it was one of the other hunters coming from the flank, but something was wrong. The figure was taller. Its arms swung too low. It moved without hurrying. Then it lifted the deer. Not dragged, lifted. The stag's legs dangled uselessly as the thing turned its head toward Basahan. Its face was flat, dark, and human in shape, but the eyes were wrong. Too calm, too aware. Covered in dark hair, it carried the deer as if it weighted nothing, then stepped back into the rocks. It was gone. Basahan did not shout. He did not fire. He froze in fear, and the image of that thing holding the deer kept playing over and over again in his mind. When he heard footsteps from behind him, he shook himself loose from the paralyzing fear. It was Erdina, and he looked concerned. The old man didn't say anything or ask him any questions, for he realized how serious the situation could be. Basahan noticed that Erdina was looking at him in a confused and bewildered way, for Basahan had wetted himself and didn't even notice it. The old man helped him clean up, but Basahan wouldn't let go of his rifle. He gripped it so hard that his knuckles were white. After a while, he calmed down and was helped back onto his horse. They rode hard back to camp. That evening, Basahan told the others what happened to him and what he saw. There was silence. Erdina closed his eyes and nodded once. Almas, the old man said. That night, they did not light a fire outside. They tied the horses close and sat with rifles across their knees. Stones shift on the slope above them. Slow, deliberate movements. Something circled the camp. Once from the darkness, it made a rough sound. Not words, but something that almost resembled laughter. At dawn, they quickly packed and left the mountains. The deer was never recovered. Years later, Batsahan would say that the worst part was not the fear. It was the certainty that the Almas had watched him line up the shot, watched him celebrate it, and had waited to take what it believed already belonged to the mountain. In the Altai, elders say that the Almas is neither animal nor spirit. It is something left behind. They say it does not attack the way wolves do, or hunt the way ghosts do. It watches those who enter places that no longer belong to them. It listens. It learns the shape of man, their voices, their movements, their pride. The Almas do not steal out of hunger. It takes what it believes the mountain has already claimed. Hunters are warned never to celebrate too loudly, never to call their names across empty valleys, and never to assume they are alone, no matter how far they ride from home. Because the Almas do not reveal itself to anyone, only to those who have been noticed. And once it has seen you, the elders say, it remembers.